What's up, everybody? Today we're going to talk a little bit about why is it that people are overweight. Yesterday we discussed intuitive eating and how all of us have a great idea of what we should and shouldn't eat. So that brings about the question, if we really know the kinds of foods that we shouldn't eat, and we have this sense of, how much is enough and how much, what we should and shouldn't eat, why is it that we're overweight? Well, there is some things that are underlying reasons that we can't control. For example, genetics. Some kids are just born and they're on the leaner side, okay? Some kids are born a little bit bigger. I was certainly one of the bigger kids, although I don't know, there's no studies that I've seen, although I would be interested to look into it. The difference between a kid that is breastfed exclusively and those kids that have, say, formula. I noticed I was a formula baby and I was a big boy. So is that something that you notice, that those type of kids are just a little bit bigger? That's something that's out of your control. Genetics specifically, there's nothing you can do about the way that you were born. Okay, so you may start from a situation where, hey, you're just not naturally as lean as the next person. Okay, with that said, there are a lot of things that we can do something about. Okay, so first and foremost, physical activity. This is not directly related to eating, but it does relate to how many calories you burn. If you're burning very few calories because you're sedentary and you're not doing a whole lot, that's something to look into. A little easy tip that can be very highly effective is walking 10 minutes after each meal. If you walk 10 minutes after each meal and you have, say, 3 meals a day, that's a 30-minute total walk. So if you find yourself, like, for example, me, on those days, like weekend days, I'm just not getting as much physical activity. It's not that we don't have things going on. I mean, heck, we've had multiple soccer games to go to, running all over town. But when I look at my step tracker, very low steps. So that tells me that, you should maybe have even a step goal. I mean, my iPhone has a step tracker, so I'm not sure that every phone has this, but it's something I already have. There's no extra cost, and it automatically does it. So I can just check my app and say, oh, wow, I haven't got very many steps in today. So, you do want to have some physical activity. That could be part of the equation. If you just don't get much physical activity, then, and if you're overweight, this isn't obvious. I know some of these things are going to seem obvious, but for whatever reason, those are things that we kind of glaze over. Like, oh, well, I don't get a bunch of physical activity, but I don't like being active. Well, let's decide what we like more. Do we not like being inactive, or do we like being inactive more than we dislike being overweight? There are some people that don't mind being overweight, and hey, if you are happy and you're considered overweight, as long as you're not morbidly obese, hey, rock what you got. There's no reason to shame anyone into feeling they have to be in a certain shape. I know me personally, when I'm in much better shape, my confidence level, that trickles in to the rest of my day and all the other things in my life. So, you may be a great business person, or you may be, great in your, church community, or all these other things. But I can guarantee you, if you get in the best shape of your life, that could be the link that is like literally holding you back from being the best person that you can be. So if you're in a situation where you're overweight and you're unhappy about it, let's start with the things we can do something about. You may not be able to affect your genetics, but you certainly can affect the inputs that affect whether you're gaining and losing weight. So first and foremost, some physical activity. Now I will say that in the grand scheme of things, food consumption is going to be more important than physical activity. I used to think when I was a personal trainer, I'm gonna get, my 6-pack, and then I can eat however I want to, and I'm just gonna work out and that'll all work itself out. Well, sadly mistaken. Not how it works, and silly for me to think that I'm gonna eat this way to get here and then do something completely different and expect things not to change. So, physical activity is definitely one. I think that's probably maybe the easiest thing to start with, because, when you're going to change your diet, for most people, it's going to be best to change little things at a time. And that's true with your exercise too. So start with the walking, start with maybe a little home workout session. There's not a need to go buy a gym membership if you've never hardly worked out in your life with any sort of consistency. So me, on the other hand, I'm a little bit more all in, and I feel like my current diet reflects that. I wasn't eating 6 cups of fruit and 6 cups of vegetables every single day before this diet, but I knew instinctively that I probably should have been. So that's a great reason to start to do something if deep down you just sense that that's right. So exercise, let's start that. Progressively add, just like when you're doing resistance training, it's called progressive overload. So the same thing is going to be true of any exercise you do. Now I will say that walking, I think, is the one thing, along with, say, housework. I mean, do you know that housework is one of the highest fat percentage burning activities? Now, you're not going to overall burn the most calories, but certainly it's a good activity to include in your lifestyle. Housework, yard work, walking, these are the steps that you can begin with without having to, completely change your life. Just add a little bit in here and a little bit in there. And so food is going to be our next major place to look at. And let's be honest, it's the most important. If you've ever heard that abs are made in the kitchen, they're not lying. You can't out exercise your bad eating habits. So first and foremost is overeating. I will say that if you choose the right kinds of foods, like I said about vegetables, I would love to see someone try to overeat vegetables. Not to the point that it causes like gastrointestinal problems, because that's just silly. But I don't think that you're going to gain weight from eating vegetables. And I don't think that you're going to gain weight from eating fruits. I mean, they have more sugars in them. But, little Timmy, fictitious Timmy, is not overweight because he eats a bag of apples every day. I mean, it's just common sense. Now, if Timmy's drinking a thing of apple juice a day, I highly recommend staying away from anything that has calories in the fluid. If you do well with milk, then good. It's not a problem for you. It is a source of good nutrition. Whether or not you think that's good for you, let you decide that for you right now. We're not getting into splitting hairs here over this food choice or that food choice at this point. So and let's get into heavily processed foods, because this is something that I think we all know inherently is not the best for you, and these foods are engineered food, that's already sounds questionable. Not only are they engineered, but they're engineered for you to crave them and eat more of them. We've all heard of you can't eat one potato chip. Now maybe there is someone out there that's like that. What are the chances that they're overweight if you can eat one potato chip? I mean, that is something that is a great quality, because if you can only eat an extremely small amount of something, it shows that not only do you have self-control, but maybe you're not as affected by this craving and this engineered food to make you just want more of it. I was a kid that, guess what? If you ever heard of a nutty bar, boy, if mom and dad went to the store and there's a box of nutty bars, I mean, I could smash a whole box of nutty bars. That's not good for you. I mean, I can say intuitively that can't be good for you. And if you look at the nutritional label, and that's why I like to get into that kind of thing, you're going to see it's extremely low in protein, extremely low in fiber, probably no vitamins and minerals, yet it's going to be extremely high in fat, carbohydrates, and sugar. So those are warning signs. And if you can eat food that's not packaged, this comes back to the single ingredient whole foods. If your food doesn't require a package, it also doesn't require a nutrition label. You don't see single apples sitting around that get labeled. There's no need for it. So, the other part of this processed food issue, especially these highly processed foods, not only are they engineered to make you crave them and want more of them, but since your body's not getting essential nutrients from them, your body is telling you to eat more because it's searching for what it needs. So you're eating more and more and more, and next thing you know, you're overweight. So, avoid highly processed foods. Make this the 1-2% of your diet, and ideally lean towards the minimally processed foods. If that food can last in your pantry for a year, I would question it. I'm not saying that everything is bad, but choose things like a healthy salad dressing, because this at least is going to help you eat the vegetables that you may not otherwise eat. So, food choices, quantities of foods, these are all major things. And sugar, we've mentioned sugar. If you're drinking a lot of regular soda and you're overweight, talk about an easy place to start. I mean, I know that it may be difficult to eliminate that kind of thing, whether you try and switch to a diet soda, which I know if you've been drinking regular soda, the diet soda is probably going to taste like crap. So I'm not saying that's going to be easy, but I'm saying that is a source of the problem. Just like fruit juices. I mean, avoid fruit juices like the plague. You're literally taking only a slim portion of the good part of the fruit, and you're getting all the sugar in a concentrated form. So that is definitely an issue. Moving on, if you have terrible sleep habits, I'm not saying that missing, a small amount of sleep is just going to make you fat. But if you have bad sleep habits, this is something that you maybe need to circle back to and do some research and prepare your mind and body for sleep each night. If you're exposing yourself to, blue light through, your phone, television, these other things, it's not going to help. So I won't get on a soapbox here because, we've all done it. We've all had these kind of circumstances. And if it doesn't affect you, if you're getting solid sleep, then awesome. But if you find that you're just always tired or that you're not waking up refreshed, this is definitely something to look at, because you know, it, once again, it's not helping. So anything you can get to help you move in the right direction, it's going to make a difference. So another thing, if you've ever heard of your microbiome, there are millions, if not billions, of little microbiome that live in your body and feed off of the food that you consume. The more fibrous foods that you consume, the more happy they're going to be. And your microbiome can crave foods. So once you start to consume a certain type of food, your microbiome may be reinforcing that habit. So that's something to consider. Once again, we're not going to get deep into this because, I mean, it's only been a year or two ago that I even heard of microbiome. In the sense of science and their understanding of microbiome, it's fairly limited, I feel like, at this point. But there is some information out there, and having a healthy microbiome is going to go a long way towards your health. And I mean, if you take a really healthy person, healthy weight, healthy markers of all sorts, you know, if you were to look at their microbiome, you're going to see a good microbiome. That's my guess. And you can get this tested. But let's start here with the most simple thing that you can do, and that's eat fruits and vegetables. Give the microbiome what they want. Give the people what they want. You know, and there are some scientists that say that this microbiome controls you way more than you would ever think. So, you know, that's that for now. We won't get too deep into that. We know that your diet's important. We know that sleep's important. We know that physical activity is important. So, once again, this is kind of basic stuff, but I feel like it's just like intuition. We all know some of these things. We have a sense of good or bad, but why don't we do it? And I would suggest that it has to do with self-programming. I've heard it stated that 95% of the way that you are by the time you're 35 years old is a program of what your life has been like. If you've ever heard of, like, you know, it takes X amount of time to create a habit, well, you've been living your life a certain way for so long that this habit is so ingrained that it's not something you think about. I mean, take for me, for example, I'm not great at video games, but I do occasionally play. If I have to take the time to think about what I'm doing, good luck. I just have a sense of what I want to do, and if I have to think about what button it is or this, that, and the other, like, I'm almost worse off. So your life is programmed like that due to the way that you have lived your life. There are some things that, even though when we talk about them, they're kind of obvious, you have to do a deep dive on your life and say, what are these areas where they're going unnoticed, but it's definitely happening? If you're eating in front of a television, if you're eating distracted, watch this. This is definitely an issue. And also the speed at which you consume your food. If you inhale your food, and if you're washing your food down, this is also a potential issue. I have heard there's actually a book, and I forget, it's the amount of times you should chew each bite of food before you swallow. So I'm not going to get crazy and say, well, you need to chew 30 times, you know, whatever the number is. Chew this many times before you swallow. I will say, though, it ain't going to hurt. So if you're one of those people that's sitting in front of the television or washing your food down, this could be one thing that you could change, and it's going to make all the difference in the world. So, food for thought. Thanks for watching. We'll be back at it with another video, and let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, and subscribe, And thanks for watching. Have a great day. Peace.